Welcome back to the OSU Sports Extra Show. I'm your host, Juwan-lee, joined by OSU beat writer Tyler-Waldrep. First show of 2025. Happy New Year's to everyone. Happy New Year's, Tyler. I hope you had a good Christmas, had a good New Year's, but it's time for us to get back into some OSU action. So let's start with some of the most recent news this week. OSU loses Kendal Daniels to the transfer portal. He moves over to the other side of Bedlam. If we still had a Bedlam, that would be so awesome. But he goes to Oklahoma. A lot of people, as Tyler said before the show, maybe thinking that their defense is a little bit better without Kendal Daniels. Tyler, I'll let you take over from here. How big of a loss is Daniels for Oklahoma State?
Yeah, and I've seen plenty of comments online that certainly suggested, oh, we're better off. That Kendall Daniels had a lot of criticism from fans online throughout the year. Um, which I mean, I to me, I think Kendall Daniels is a huge loss. Um, I think the thing that maybe, especially in the middle of a frustrating season, you want to latch on to different guys that aren't making plays. To me, I think the thing we got to remember is Kendall Daniels was never supposed to be in that role this year. This was his first year playing linebacker. And if you look back at the first couple games with Colin Oliver, with Nick Martin, Kendall Daniels looks fine. It makes the game clinching tackle against Arkansas. The problem is, as like, Oklahoma State's defense was built around Colin Oliver. Um, Colin Oliver goes out, suddenly the defense doesn't work right. Everybody on the team is put in a worse position because they don't have a really solid backup plan for what to do if they lose Colin Oliver. Then Nick Martin goes out, and suddenly Kendall Daniels is the focal point of the defense. Kendall Daniels is, um, just he is suddenly responsible for leading this defense. That was never a role he was supposed to have this year. And I mean, and he even said, even after some of these games, he said, I'm not playing up to the level that I want to be playing at. So, I mean, Kendall, I don't think if Kendall were here, I don't think he would say, yeah, I played great this year. That said, he started to play better I thought he started to play better the last couple weeks. PFF, which I don't think is like the Bible for this stuff, but I do think, it can be a good baseline. His grades in PFF shot up the last couple weeks. Um, he had 16 tackles and 2.5 sacks in the last two games. And he didn't hit those numbers at any other 2 week stretch this season. He missed 0 tackles in both of those games, according to PFF. Again, not saying he actually missed 0 tackles, but if you look back throughout the rest of the season, they have him missing tackles in all these other games. And again, just the eye test, I thought he was getting better, which makes sense because he's finally played what, 6 games in that role as the guy at linebacker. And I'm not saying Kendall Daniels was. I don't know that I think he's going to come back and be like one of the best linebackers in the country. I don't know that he's even going to be Nick Martin, but I just thought he's hitting his stride. He's a guy that looks really capable of starting at that role. I mean, I think it's a loss. And some fans are glad he's gone, and they'll certainly be rooting against him at OU. I'm just putting that out there now. I, when you're talking to your Sooner friends, we probably all have at least one in our lives. Maybe don't talk too big about Kendall Daniels this offseason, unless you want them cashing those receipts at the end of next year, because I think it's possible that he plays well for Oklahoma. I also think his loss even bigger this week. Now, we find out Monday night Jeff Roberson enters the transfer portal. He was Oklahoma State's only returning linebacker with like any meaningful experience. Now, don't be confused. You might go to the roster and pull up, and like there might be some guys listed at linebacker that played. Those guys just those guys were only pass rushers, didn't play any coverage snaps. I'm talking about traditional linebackers that guys we trust to do everything, including drop back and cover. Uh, Oklahoma State doesn't have any of those guys. I think the leading returner, experience wise, couldn't tell you off the top of my head because I think he played less than 8 coverage snaps, um, and less than like maybe 30 snaps total. Like that's what we're talking about. There is nobody coming back at that role. So I think that's a huge loss. Also, Jeff, uh, I thought Kendal Daniels was getting better the last couple weeks. Jeff, the last like 4 or 5 weeks looked like he was getting better. I'd have him probably as most improved defender the last half of the season. Thought he looked really good. Thought he was gonna again another guy in a role that he wasn't expected to be in because of Nick Martin's injury. I just thought he was getting, you know, another guy I thought was, elevating to the next level. On the positive, Oklahoma State is bringing in some linebackers to compete. I thought Jeff was going to have to, I thought there were enough guys coming in. Jeff was going to have to compete to prove he deserved to keep that spot as one of the starting linebackers. So it's not like the team has no hope. It's not like Kendall leaving and Jeff leaving. It's not like, oh my gosh, we're just starting nobody's a linebacker. I think there will still be a healthy competition there this spring. That said, I'm really concerned about depth at linebacker right now for Oklahoma State. If you had a Jeff, if you had a Kendall, especially if you had both, I wouldn't have those concerns. But I mean, we just saw this year, you know, what happens if you lose a guy? Like, I think Oklahoma State could start quality linebackers, but what if they lose a guy in the first 3 games, which happened this year? Is there enough depth behind them? Also, we haven't seen, we haven't, they haven't started practicing. It's been a little bit since Grantham's been a defensive coordinator. We don't know if he's going to stick with the same stuff he was running previously. If he does, I think Oklahoma State might need more linebackers this year than they've used previously. Again, we'll have a better idea once they start practicing, like, how that stuff shakes out. But
Hmm.
if they need more linebackers and they have less, and it's just depth, I'm terrified about Oklahoma State's depth right now. It's possible we won't feel that way a couple weeks into spring, but just heading into spring, that's one of the positions I'm most worried about from a depth standpoint.